Hello people, I'm Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
Hello.
This is the series review for Sacred Games. Now, we kind of skipped over talking about episode 7. This is going to more heavily emphasize episode 7 and 8 because we did a review for episodes 1 through 6, but this is going to talk about the entire series in general. The first thing I want to say is, man, this show is so mean to its main characters. Like, all of the 3 characters that we're following in this show, the writer is so cruel to its main characters. And this is only the first quarter of the book.
Yes, apparently. According to what I read on the interwebs.
I'm imagining that there's going to be other main characters that are introduced in the following seasons that we'll follow.
Yeah, especially because some main characters... Well, we can say,
yeah,
right?
We can say. This is a spoiler review, just FYI.
Like, what the hell at the end of episode 7 when Anjali gets shot in the head? I was like...
Yeah.
What? No, it was almost like my feeling at the end of the first season of Game of Thrones when Ned Stark got beheaded.
Yeah.
I was like, what the F? Why?
Yeah.
She's gone.
You know, for some reason I was expecting that. It wasn't as shocking as I thought it was going to be. I just got the sense that this show is kind of like Game of Thrones in that regard, where any of your characters can just die off.
Doesn't pull its punches at all.
It's pretty cruel to its main character. The only thing I can compare this to in my head, for some reason, besides Game of Thrones, is Charlie Houston, which is a writer that most people, even in the States, don't know about. But he's cruel to his main character. Like, he beats up his main character in every single book of his that I've read, or even when he's got multiple main characters. It's like, I don't know if Indian audiences can appreciate his writing style as much, because it's very, like, New York and very LA-centric in its manner, but I think in general, like, if you guys read it, you get the feeling that I'm talking about. Like, he's mean to his main characters, and that's what I was getting here. I'm like, gosh, like in the last episode, Sartaaj gets his thumb chopped off. I'm just like, golly, like, no holds barred.
Yeah, that bit, I was just like so grossed out by it as well, because it was just so graphic.
Well, I knew that was coming too. That's the thing, is like, I just knew that when he tied him up, I'm like, yeah, something's gonna happen. I thought he was gonna get his hand chopped off. I was surprised it was just his thumb. I knew that something was gonna get lost. I just didn't know what. And when he was about to chop off his other hand, I knew that was not gonna happen. Like, okay, the writer's cruel, but he's not that cruel. He's not gonna chop off his whole other hand and then leave him like dying from like blood loss. Yeah, blood loss. He's not gonna kill him.
Well, you would think. No, I wouldn't put it past him.
I knew he wasn't gonna kill Sartaaj. I'm not saying he won't in the following seasons, but I knew he wasn't gonna kill him this time. You needed some kind of hero to follow to the end of the show. He could get killed off like at the episode 1 of season 2. Like, who knows what'll happen. Let's talk a little bit about episode 7 real quick. Just for the consistency, the IMDb says, hoping to tie up many loose ends on their case, Sartaaj and Anjali reunite to figure out how the enigmatic Trivedi is linked to Gaitonde's prophecy. One of the big things that happens in episode 7 is that Anjali and Sartaaj reunite, right? You think that that's going to be kind of the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And then she gets killed off. The writer does a good job of setting you up and then kicking your legs out from under you.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. And I think that's why I came to expect the things that happen, like her getting killed, Sartaaj losing his thumb. He's constantly setting you up to then kind of hurt you. While that's good, it's the one thing I kind of fault the show for, because it happens with such frequency that it doesn't surprise me anymore.
Right, like you're almost expecting bad shit to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's more realistic. She ends up being sidelined by her boss, so she goes off on her own adventure not her own adventure, but she goes off on her own quest to solve this case, because she knows what's gonna happen. It's just gonna sit there on the desk, and nothing's gonna happen with it, because she's a woman, or because her boss just doesn't think it's that important.
Exactly.
Like, whatever the reasons are, it's not apparently important to her boss. So, but she knows that this is a big thing, and so she goes off and looks for the thing and ends up getting killed in the process.
Curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand is when she went to that house, I didn't understand why it didn't cross her mind to call for backup before she goes into the house. Like, hey dudes.
She didn't know.
This is what I'm...
She didn't know.
But she should have let someone know.
She should have let someone know. You're right.
What she was doing.
I agree with you. She should have let someone know. But the thing is, she was in a position where she was not being backed up. Like, internally, she wasn't being backed up.
Right.
So she had to go and find a reason to be backed up. Almost like, I think it was episode 2, when Sartaaj found the money, It's like he wasn't going to call for backup necessarily. He wasn't going to call for people to come show up until he found a reason for people to come show up.
Sure.
And
okay, fine. I buy that.
That's the whole thing. It's like, why is she going to call for help when they're not going to help her out? They're going to be like, why? For what? What are you doing? Come back to the station. You shouldn't be doing that.
I just wish she had like more of a partner, because it seemed like she did have people working under her that she could have just been like, hey, I'm just going here just so you know.
Yeah.
And I also wish that she had the foresight or had been quick enough to take some photos with her camera phone of the plans and then text them to someone.
So Luke Kenny plays Malcolm, and I thought that he actually did an excellent job as this kind of stone cold killer. I almost wish that he dialed it back a little bit. It was on the nose as the stone cold killer, like very intense, and I'm like, it's a little bit much, but in general, I liked what he brought to the table. Like, I thought he was good as that guy, but there was just some moments where I'm like, okay, you're that guy all the time. Like but you got to blend in with the crowd. Like, you can't be intense as you walk around as this doctor. Like, you have to kind of,
Yeah, like assimilate a little bit more. But like, I appreciated his dedication to his character.
Yeah.
And I know you've mentioned this before, but overall, all the acting in this show is
amazing.
Stellar. I really want to point out the woman who played Gaitonde's wife. I especially loved her beautiful monologue that she did
regarding religion.
Yeah, regarding the religion and the dessert. I just thought she was such an interesting character. She's a woman of humble origins, and yet, like, she's really smart, she's really well-rounded, she's sweet, and she's strong, and she's cunning, all at the same time. That monologue about religion and about class was really, really powerful. I think that's why religion sometimes has such a hold on the poor, because they feel like within society there's nowhere for them to turn to. Religion welcomes them with open arms. Where they're considered lesser than in society, God or whoever says, no, I love you, and blah, blah, blah. What she said about, why they all kind of go crazy during the religious festivals and stuff was really poignant as well, because, yeah, they're never going to get into a disco. They're never going to get into a club. She's like, the streets of Mumbai are our club. And I was like, wow.
One of the things that I thought might happen was that she continues to be an influence in his ear. The thing about this show is, particularly with Gaitonde's character, is his story is very truncated. It spent the most amount of time, like, really just taking its time with his character only in episode 8 when he was being tortured. Like, that was the only time where it was slow, because you see him going through that process of being tortured again and again and being broken down and broken down to the point that nearly he was going to basically give up on life and be killed until Third Father comes in and says, you gotta keep going. Going back to her, if the show took more time with Gaitonde's character, I think you would have seen her giving more influence on him. Her death itself had such an impact on his direction. He completely flipped his shit and went after all the Muslims because of her. And so while she wasn't a continual influence in his ear the way I thought it might be, she had an incredible impact on his path.
And it seems like all his romantic relationships end in tragedy.
I think everybody is experiencing tragedy in the show in general.
Yeah.
Like, in some way or another. Like, it's whether it's themselves or something, like, around them. Everybody experiences tragedy in a very significant way in the show, especially Gaitonde. I mean, he lost his bunny dude. He loses his friends. Like, remember when you asked why he was crying after he lost the bunny guy?
Yeah.
I think it was also a matter of feeling betrayed. Feeling like he's got nobody he can trust.
Right.
A feeling that isolation, that kind of thing can really mess with you when you feel like you've got nobody you can turn to. And I think that's something we all kind of deal with in our lives, is that feeling of like, man, can I trust nobody? Is there no one I can lean on? Am I really alone in this whole endeavor? Like you said, religion kind of gives us that security of not feeling alone.
Yeah.
I love that this show really emphasizes conversation on religion in all these different facets.
It does showcase how negative religion can be, obviously, because there's a conflict between the Hindus and the Muslims, and this whole thing that's gonna go off in Mumbai, it's basically, you know, like a religious war.
It's religious terrorism.
Yeah, it's religious terrorism. And then there was the whole thing with Hindus burning down the mosque because it was originally built on sacred land and Like, people are always having these conflicts. And yet, on the other hand, religion is also so inclusive. It does kind of like invite that conversation.
Do you feel like her monologue was this show or book's way of saying, well, here's why religion is good? Or do you feel like the show is saying, this is why people subscribe to it and stay faithful to it?
I think it's the latter.
Someone was saying in one of the comments that we saw that the show is anti-Hinduism.
Hindu, yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's simply anti-religion. I think it's saying that religion, while having the feigned appearance of bringing people together and keeping you safe, is really ripping people apart in a very profound and irreversible way. Like, it seems like this is just going to continue for centuries to come. We're going to continue, like, inheriting the hatred and oppositions of our ancestors, so to speak. Like, we're going to pass this on, and our children's children's children are going to inherit the legacy of religious opposition from one another.
Violence begets violence begets violence. So it's just a never-ending cycle. Let's talk about that scene where Anjali and Sartaaj meet up again at the airport. Just in terms of how it was shot, I thought it was so cool, just the way it looked. Yeah, because it seems to me that Vikramaditya Motwane has like this obsession with filming things through doorways or having like a physical separation between the character and the camera. It kind of gives you that feeling of like, oh, I'm just a fly on the wall watching this.
Right, you feel like a spectator.
Exactly, and just aesthetically, it looks really, really cool.
There was something that happened in that scene, the way it was shot, where typically when you shoot, I'm gonna see if I can explain this without breaking
your brain.
Yeah. The way that scene was shot was very interesting because it followed the rule of how you shoot over the shoulders, but it positioned the characters off to the side so that when it was cutting back and forth, they were actually on the opposite sides that they should be. And if that makes any sense. Like, if you go and watch any traditional over-the-shoulder scene, two people talking, in any movie, it follows the 180 rule. There's something called the 180 rule where you got to keep the camera on the same side.
Right.
So that it doesn't jar the audience's perspective,
It's
right?
like what they say when, like, you don't cross the line,
Exactly. So if we're shooting a dialogue scene, and there's a camera here and a camera here, right? On your camera, you're on the left side of frame. On my camera, I'm on the right side of frame. It keeps that consistency with the 180 rule being here so that the audience doesn't get jarred.
Right.
Right? But what they did in the show for that particular scene was when the camera was here, it actually put Sartaaj to the left of frame and it put Anjali to the right of frame, even though the cameras were in the correct position. It basically was subtly saying that shit is getting flipped. All that for a long walk a long walk for a cup of water. I apologize for that long explanation. I hope that didn't go over your heads or confuse you guys. Basically what I was saying is, in the way that was shot, it was a subtle way of saying things are gonna be different. I felt that was indicative of something big. I just didn't know what exactly, and she gets killed.
That's very interesting.
You know, like, so the director is playing with the rules that I have come to understand as an American filmmaker. Like, studying American films, there's a lot of these things that come up. There's a lot of interesting nuances that if you study, you know, American film rules, there's a lot of, indicating of what's to come. One rule that my dad taught me was, generally speaking, if your main character has a lucky charm of some kind and he gives it up to someone else,
he's gonna die.
He's gonna die. That's just a rule. If a character offers another character a cigarette, that generally means that the character being offered a cigarette is about to die. Like in True Romance, Dennis Hopper's offered a cigarette and he gets killed like minutes later.
Oh shoot! I didn't even realize that. Oh, while we're on the subject, I have one to share.
What?
If a character is wearing red,
usually that's an indicator that it is a significant scene. Red, because red is a strong color.
But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed how that scene was shot because it was breaking the rules in an interesting way.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. Just overall, I thought that the camera angles and choices that Vikramaditya Motwane did were very interesting.
Vikramaditya is more the cinematic storyteller, trying to indicate things to the audience through the scope of the lens. Mm-hmm. And Anurag is more of the emotional storyteller focused on what the performances are. Like, not to take anything away from Vikramaditya, like, I think that he does a great job of getting performances out.
Oh, yeah.
But he's definitely more of what's going on in the frame. And Anurag Kashyap is more of how is he affecting you? What is he doing to affect you emotionally? And I think that they make a great combination.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're getting the best of both worlds. One thing that happens a lot in this show is that our main character, Sartaaj, gets captured. Like, over and over and over again. There's only so many times you can do that to me before it stops being surprising. After a while, it's like, okay, well, this guy's just not that good. Like, he's gonna...
Like, he just has... I feel like he just has the worst luck. Because I'm going to jump forward a little bit to episode 8.
Yeah.
But when he gets on that train and then he arrives at, like, the depot or whatever, and then he's just walking along, looking at the stuff, and then you see the guys come up behind him with the guns. I was like, oh, geez, man, Sartaaj.
Yeah.
You just have the worst luck, or you're, like, the most conspicuous cop ever.
I'm trying to figure that out because this show is very smart. The writing is very smart, but I'm wondering about that specific idea that he keeps getting captured. It's either deliberate or it's lazy, and I don't know which one it is yet until we watch the rest of the show. You know, the following seasons.
Right.
Until we watch the rest of it or read the rest of it, I won't know if the writer's just being lazy or smart in that regard. It's like you're playing this hand over and over again. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that the good cops are all idiots, or is it you just couldn't think of a better way to move the story forward?
Right.
Like, what is it exactly? Why do you have your main character being captured that many times in the span of a quarter of the book?
Or is it like it's really hard being a good cop and a lot of bad stuff happens to you, which is why people tend to take the easier route of just being corrupt or whatever.
That's a possible way to, I mean, that's the great thing about art in general. Like, it's open to interpretation. While I may not agree with that interpretation, it's valid.
I don't know if I agree with that. I'm just throwing that out there as like a possibility. Like maybe that's what's going on.
Let's jump forward all the way to the end of here. I want to know how you felt about the very end of the season. Him finding the bomb shelter, essentially.
I felt like it was incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quarter of the book.
I know. I wanted more satisfaction. We've been watching 24, the second season, and in that there is also a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, guys. Even in that, you know, they find it and then they're gonna like disable it. There's a whole arc about this thing and all the stuff that happens around it. Whereas this, it's like, oh yeah, we found it. The end. I'm like, wait, what? No, but like, what do you gonna like, no, you didn't even find the bomb. They just found the bomb shelter. So now they know it's a nuclear bomb because of all the clues in the bomb shelter. Right. And then like, but where's the bomb? And like, what the, there's so many questions.
Certainly. I mean, this is the first act of a show that is taking you deep into the trenches of conflict and confusion. There's a lot going on, and it's setting up a lot of stuff. This is just the first act. There's 3 more acts to go. I feel like for what this is, they managed to tell a complete first season. They left you with questions, but if they just stop it here, you get an idea as to where this goes.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it ended, I was like, oh, I see what's gonna happen next. Because this first season is obviously about finding out exactly what the threat is.
What's going on.
And like what the background is and all of that. So then the next one would be, okay, well, we know we're looking for a bomb and it's most likely a nuclear bomb. Obviously, that's why everybody in the know wants to get out of the city. So now they know what they are up against. So it's about finding it, disarming it, and all of that stuff.
I just started thinking about Radhika Apte's death again, or Anjali's death. In the I started thinking about that again for some reason. If you were reading this like end to end instead of just like this season, her death is almost like the first 20 minutes of Psycho. You haven't seen Psycho, have you? Okay, I just ruined it for you. But like,
no, I know what happens in Psycho. Everyone knows what happens in Psycho.
But my point is that you are expecting this book to be Sartaaj and Anjali's adventure. It kills her early on to really let you know, like, this book is not going to be anything that you can predict. It came late in this season, but if you were reading the book, it would feel like it came early.
Yeah.
I gotta give the writer credit for that. It's constantly kind of pulling you this way and that way, and you're like, based on what you become accustomed to, you know, we've been saying this, like, you're expecting it to go this route, and it just doesn't go it will never go the way you expect it to go until season 7 of Game of Thrones. when it just does everything you want it to do. And Jon Snow beats up that guy who cuts off people's penises. Ramsay Bolton, fuck that guy. Mindhunters. That's the shows that you go.
Yes. This show really does remind me of Mindhunters. That thought had crossed my mind before, and then it fell out of my brain.
The way that show ends, I think that was 8 episodes as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You might be right. Yeah.
But the way that show ends is kind of like this, where you're like, wait, hold on. Like, I just got a semblance of an idea as to what's happening, and then you just stopped.
Yeah.
Like, you just stopped literally as it was getting even more interesting. And I think that's like, they're ending on a cliffhanger. They want you to come back. It's like, wait, so what's happening? Oh my God, hold on, black screen. Oh shit, I gotta wait a year for the, It's definitely one of the best shows I've seen on Netflix. This is a very complicated show.
Yeah.
Like, I had to kind of go, I mean, it might be more complicated for us for obvious reasons. We had to go back and like talk about the episodes aside from shooting these reviews, because I was a little bit confused about certain things as we went along, the importance of certain things, because there was all this emphasis about Trivedi. I'm like, but he never really comes up in the show, but like a handful of times.
Yeah,
like his importance isn't really shown in this season. It has yet to reveal itself.
Yeah, he's an enigma.
This really is like the first season of Game of Thrones, because there's like all this kind of distraction happening before you realize the show's about magic. You know what I'm saying? The show's kind of taking you this way and that way and distracting you with all these little things, and then you realize it's about a nuclear bomb.
I had a suspicion that it was a nuclear bomb.
Well, I mean, we all did, I think. But it's about a religious war that's yet to come.
You know what I really liked in episode 8? That whole reveal at the end, like when he puts the pieces together.
Yeah.
About like a mandala being a sacred thing. It's like a sacred doorway. They're always in doorways and blah, blah, blah. And then you get all the flashbacks of the images that you've been seeing of the mandala that you see in the title of Sacred Games.
Yeah.
And then it's a recurring motif. It's a recurring theme. And like, you're like, oh, yeah, like I kind of did notice that, but I didn't really put it together. And then when he puts it together, you're all like, oh yeah!
Right.
And then it's like, oh, it's a secret clue. It was there in front of his eyes the whole time and in front of our eyes. I love those moments in shows and movies.
When he found that door though into the floor, I'm like, I mean, I have the vantage point of being the audience, right? I'm watching it, so I can see everything happening. But like, as soon as you saw the symbol on the floor, I'm like, open that shit up, yo. Like, obviously that's a door. Haven't you been watching the show, man? Like, the symbol's everywhere. Open it up. What I found interesting, though, was something that might almost go unnoticed, which is that Sartaaj this whole time has been suspicious that his father might have been corrupt. And then he finds out from his mom, it's like, no, he was just a good dude. And, you know, people can recognize a good Samaritan. People can recognize good people. While I like that, it's a little bit confusing, because the only reason why Gaitonde recognized it was because he was in prison. If Gaitonde came across Sartaaj's father in the streets, he would have killed him, because he was killing innocent people. I don't know that Gaitonde would have been able to recognize his goodness in the streets.
It was almost a little bit disappointing that was the only link. Do you know what I mean? Like, after all this time, you're like, oh wow, you know, Gaitonde has this link with Sartaaj's dad, and then you're like, oh, it's only because he just remembered that he was kind to him. Like, I thought it would have been, I mean, I guess it's significant.
It is significant because
I guess I just thought it would be more significant.
That is significant to him, though.
Right.
Because he would have died otherwise. 2 things got him through that. It was Sartaaj's dad and third father's phone call.
Oh my God.
What?
That part was incredibly satisfying for me when they showed the flashback of Gaitonde as a kid, and he was the one that killed his mother and her lover. I know I didn't say this in the first episode discussion, but when I watched that part and I saw his dad being taken away, I was like, nah, Gaitonde did it.
Yeah.
And then to have that confirmed, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew who you were, Gaitonde. I knew you were messed up, and, you know, you had this violent streak ever since you were a kid, and it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But to, like, that moment where he just, like, breaks down on the phone, maybe that is, like, the effects of the torture, you know? He's been broken down physically, and now he can finally, like, release that guilt, that shame over his mother, that he was the one that murdered her.
That was an interesting moment. I couldn't tell if it was only because of the torture or if it was because he's been holding on to that for so many years. It was like this unsuppressed kind of therapy moment.
Yeah.
Where he finally like breaks and...
Where someone's like, just let it out.
It's really surprising to me that Gaitone was able to communicate all of this story over the phone while Sartaaj was looking for him.
I know. How do we feel about this, the show overall?
Obviously, we just finished the show, so it's still fresh in my mind. But overall, I really, really like the execution of it. I like how it's shot. I like how it's edited. I love the acting, the music, again with the music, everything. It's firing on all cylinders. It's being done in such a way, and I don't know if this is trickery, but it almost feels like the show is too smart for me sometimes.
Yeah,
Like-
I mean, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so many clues and stuff.
It's just very intelligently written, but like I can't
Yeah.
tell. Here's the thing: is like I can't tell if it's intelligently written in full earnest or if it's just written in such a way that is deliberately confusing, and so you feel stupid as you watch. Like it might be a little bit of both. There might be a little bit of both because it's jumping around.
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's the former.
Yeah, but I mean, it's jumping around a lot, and like inherent to a movie or show that's jumping around, you could get lost.
Yeah.
And it could make you feel stupid because you're like, wait, hold on, what?
It's very interesting. There are a lot of questions. There's a lot of characters and trying to see how they're all connected and where the story is going to go is very interesting. If anything, it's given me a very strong desire to read the book.
As I said, overall, I really like the show a lot. Very, very much looking forward to season 2. Again, like fired on all cylinders, like the acting, the music, the
direction.
The only thing that I can fault the show for off the top of my head is some of the action in the show felt a little clunky, like when they were fighting after Sartaaj loses his thumb. Like there was some weird action there, but I'm like, maybe that's what it looks like in real life, but like it just looked like some of the actors were holding back in order to not hurt each other as opposed to really, really going for it. And maybe that's like a financial thing where like they can only afford to do so much. I have no idea, but overall, like I thought the show was amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite Netflix shows, and I'm really glad they did it. So you guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and if you've been watching every single review, thanks so much. I'm pretty sure that it's the same people watching every single review because it's around 40,000 views every single time. It's the same audience.
So to you guys.
Yeah, to you guys. Thanks so much. And so check out ACHARA KIRK on the social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our other reactions, reviews, and short films. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be honest, be verbose. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.